All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I think we are ready to get started here. So thank you all for joining us at 8 a.m. on the last day of the conference. Give yourselves a hand for that. Made it through. I know I am on California time, so it still feels like 5 a.m. to me. It's like I still haven't adjusted after 3 days here. So I've got some green tea here, and we'll all do our best to be awake and ready to go. Gerald, can you just confirm that they can hear me in the online session? We're good. Okay. Okay, so welcome. As I mentioned, we are here from California. So my name is Miranda Curry, and this is my colleague Gerald, who's just supporting me for the hybrid session. We are with OTAN, which stands for Outreach and Technical Assistance Network. So if you aren't familiar with us, we are one of the state leadership projects for adult education in California, and we specifically support educational technology for all of the schools in the state. So we are happy to be here. We offer professional development. We put on our own conference for California educators every year. And we have a variety of online resources. You can check them all out at otan.us. So you are here today for digital tool overload, evaluating and selecting the right tech for adult learning. Again, my name is Miranda Curry. I'm a project specialist. Gerald is also a project specialist, my colleague here. So welcome, welcome. And I do have here a QR code. So if you want to have access to resources, there's a link here. This goes to a Google Doc, which has a link to the presentation slides and links to some of the other resources that I'm going to be talking about and that we'll be working with today. So you can have them on your own device. I will post it in the app. It's not there yet, but it'll be there. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll give you all a moment to scan that. And who do we have in the room today? Where did you all come from? Utah. What was that? Iowa. Okay. Arizona, Texas, Michigan. Wow. Hmm? Mississippi. Okay. So all over the country. And what's your role? Are you teachers, administrators, something else? Teacher? Excellent. All right. So my background, I have a background as an ESL teacher. That's how I started out. So that's what my teaching experience is. Was the ESL lead at an adult school before joining OTAN, and I loved working with the beginning level, literacy level ESL students. So that was my jam. But also love educational technology. So anybody can relate to this image here? It's like there's so many tools out there, and I feel like it's just growing and growing and growing every year. It's like now there's just like a new AI tool like every day, right? And it's just can feel really overwhelming. It's like, wow, there's all these great tools. There's so many new ones, and they all claim to have some key that's gonna make teaching so much easier and engaging and wonderful for our students. And it can feel a little overwhelming. Like, how am I supposed to, what's the best tool to use? How am I supposed to integrate all of these tools? I have so little time and I have to learn the tools. So we sometimes need to make decisions. It's like, sure, this tool looks great. It's fantastic. I have it on my list now of things to try, but is it really going to be worth my time and is it going to be worth my students' time? So, and this happens to me too. I have like so many different things bookmarked that I want to play around with and try. And there's reality is we can't use every single tool, and really that wouldn't benefit our students in the long run anyway. So we have some frameworks to help with some of that decision making, um, which we'll go over today. So I wanted to start with a Mentimeter poll. So again, you can scan this, and I have a couple questions on here. There's like a little slide thing. Let me get over to it in the actual poll and get it started. Okay, so you can scan the code there, or you can go to menti.com and enter that code. And there is a little slide here. So how many tech tools have you tried in the last year? And then how many do you actually use weekly? And so you can kind of slide it from 0 all the way to more than 10. And here we go. We can start to see some of the results here. Yeah, so I can already see a trend starting that, Gerald, can you hand me actually that other mic so I can walk around a little bit? Is that on? Hello, hello. Okay. So you can see already that there's a trend that we're trying many more than we're actually using. So, which is me too. I've probably tried 10 plus, but how many do I actually use weekly? Even though I'm not in the classroom now, but for my job, it's probably closer around 4 or 5. It's hard for me to stay tethered to here for the camera. I'm used to like pacing the room when I present. Turn that off. Okay. We'll go to here. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to come up with a toolkit of strategies for helping evaluate some of these new ed tech tools and deciding which ones are the best to use in our classrooms. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what's the mindset, what's the approach that we can use when selecting new tools. Then I have an evaluation toolkit, some different frameworks that you can use for this process. We're going to actually do some practice, so you'll get some time to choose a tool and try it out with one of the frameworks I'll be sharing with you, and then go over some different strategies for success. So first, just to frame this, we know that tech is super important in this era. I think it's something like 92% of jobs now require some kind of tech skill. Even, your construction worker is out there using some apps to help with their work. So these are super important skills for our adult students to be gaining. And we really want the technology to be a bridge to learning rather than a barrier. So it's important to be incorporating technology into our classrooms to help bridge that digital divide and give our adult learners, who are workers as well, most of them are parents or grandparents, skills for success. And then it can feel overwhelming because tech is just exploding. And just as teachers, we can feel overwhelmed by all of the choices. Our students could also feel overwhelmed, especially if they don't have as much experience using digital tools. It can feel like a huge barrier to continuing education, to getting into employment, and even just to participation, like scheduling a doctor's appointment or anything like that. It's so much is online now. So it is really important to be incorporating tech, and we just need to do it thoughtfully and make sure we're choosing tools that enhance learning rather than create another barrier for our students. So just coming back to learning first, technology second, just kind of framing that. Like, it isn't about using the new fancy tools. It really starts with our students. So we want to always make sure we're coming back to our students. Learning is our most important thing, and we need our technology that we use to support learning. And then another just thing, there's no magic bullet. Of course, all of these tools are going to sell themselves as the one tool that's going to make your life as a teacher easier and make your students get everything, but there's no magic bullet. And just be careful. There's like always the shiny new object. I want to try out this cool new AI tool. Just remember, oops, learning first, technology second, right? Hi, welcome. So this is a cool little graphic that actually Notebook LM generated for me. And I don't usually like using the AI graphic generators because there's always something wrong with them, but it did a pretty good job with this. So, you know, sometimes I think that the temptation is to start with the tech tool and then figure out how am I going to use this tech tool in my class? And then hopefully there's some learning that comes out of it. But we want to make sure we flip that. So starting with the learning goal and then developing a meaningful task to help students reach that goal. And then choosing purposefully what is the tech tool that helps support this goal, or how does the tool that is in my repertoire support the goal. So there is this nice quote here, which you can't see because let me hide that floating. I just learned today that you can hide the floating meeting controls. So there is a quote here from Dr. Liz Kolb, who has developed the Triple E framework, which is one of the frameworks I'll be talking about today. And Gerald, can you read the quote for me? So it's not just my voice the whole time.
So the quote is, in life, we don't select a tool and create a problem just so that we can use the tool. Rather, we select a tool to meet the needs of the problem.
Thank you. And yeah, it's okay, you can keep it now. I'll just stay here. I won't wander. So I just loved this quote, and this is from Dr. Liz Kolb's book, which is also actually called Learning First, Technology Second. And it just really, I think, encapsulates the whole approach that we need to have when selecting technology for the class. Is just don't get caught up in the shiny new tool that's going to solve all the problems. Really focus on what is my learning goal and how can I select tools that enhance that learning goal and help my students get to the learning goal. So we know that's not all, it's sometimes easier said than done. Sometimes we think, hey, here's this, I'm going to use this great new app that I learned about with my students, and it fails, right? So I'm sure we've all had an experience like this. I know I've had experiences where even just something like, oh, I'm going to do a Kahoot with my students, my beginning ESL students, and then we spend 30 minutes trying to get everybody logged on and it sucks up the whole class. And I say, well, gosh, was that really a good use of class time? Like, did they really gain? Sure, they had fun once everybody actually got on the Kahoot and it was like, woohoo, but was this really a valuable use of time? So think about a time, I'm sure that we have all can remember an instance when a tech tool failed your students. And think about, reflect on what was the problem? Was it the tool that was the problem? Was it maybe the goal of the lesson that was the problem? Or was it, your delivery? Maybe you needed to scaffold the activity more. So I'm going to have you turn to somebody in the room and just chat for a couple minutes. If you are online, you can share your experience in the chat. Now, the Zoom chat is disabled, but you can use the Whova chat if you want to share your experiences. So I'll give you a couple minutes to chat, and then we can come back and share.
You want me to adjust this a little bit? This way, that way it's more like.
Please.
Pretty sensitive. Yeah. You want me to read it out or you want the?
Oh,
I guess
somebody chat. Yeah, when we come back. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, we'll come back together here. So we have some great comments online, and I'd also love to hear some stories. Sorry, I just moved that again, from the audience. So Gerald, does anybody have something they'd like to share? A story about a time a tech tool failed? Students? Gerald, do you want to share some of the chats that came in from the online participants?
Absolutely. There's a general consensus looking at, what you mentioned, Kahoots, or any of those online, activities where people have to sign in or there's some security walls. Big general consensus is that, many didn't realize the preparation time, the preparation that was needed in order to get everybody ready in terms of sign-ins or, security codes. There were some people that were using live translation on their phones while they were trying to sign in to maybe like Kahoot or something, right? Um, and it's let's see, and that was a consensus between a couple. Anthony Burek here is saying that it's unfortunate that sometimes previously free tools are not free anymore. We've seen that trend happening a lot, right? When we see something new, brand new and shiny, it's free, and then people start using it, then it becomes there's a paywall or something like that.
Anthony Burek works for OTAN as
Anthony
well.
also works for OTAN, yes.
He's an expert.
Yeah, with the Kahoots, it was rough start at first for many. Mike, that was from Joy King. Michael Bird was saying that he was a community educator in social services at the time, and he asked the state what they had for an internet safety program that he could use, and they said, "Huh, we don't have one, but that's a great idea." So that was interesting. Anyone else up here that wanted to share a story? What else do we have here? Tara was saying that Quizlet seems to make people sign in now in order to get all the benefits. Just generally, another consensus is that multiple security and sign-in requirements are kind of making it creating a barrier for students. So I'm seeing that a lot in the chat too.
We have a comment from the back here.
Absolutely.
So you'll have to talk into the mic so the people online can hear.
Yes. Another one by Allison was that a lot often fail because we underestimate the time or the preparation that we need, right?
I'm not sure about fail necessarily. So in our center for GED, some teachers are using Essential Ed maybe as a primary tool for teaching. So maybe a student comes, they're new, they sit down, they are put in Essential Ed or in Aztec, and we don't see them again. So I'm guessing, is that the fail? Like, is too much technology causing a problem with retention? I mean, I think it's a good thing, obviously, for distance learning or assignments, or but I'm just wondering, I'm curious about being here about saying, how do we know that they're failing sometimes? Is it just by retention and they're not coming back?
Yeah, it can be hard to tell if you're not getting that feedback from students, right? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm giving a session later today that's on setting up digital literacy routines. And I think this is part of it too, is just start establishing, like picking a small amount of tools and just using them regularly so that students can really become familiar with those login processes. I'm hearing a trend that like the two-factor authentication can often be a challenge. I was struggling with it just now, trying to get logged in, and I have to pull out my cell phone and my authenticator app, all of that. So sometimes it can be hard to establish, especially the first time you log into a tool. But I think if you keep doing like that repetition and checking in with students, find a way to reach out to them and be like, hey, is this working for you? Does this feel like this is enhancing your learning? Then you can kind of figure out how to work with it with your students. Oops. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so thank you everybody for sharing your thoughts. So we're going to go over now some different tools, and there's a gazillion different frameworks out there. So I'm going to share some of them that you can use to help evaluate whether or not the tools that you want to use are the best tools for the job and whether they're actually reaching students and helping reach those learning goals and help you with the selection process as well. So I'm going to go through a couple of frameworks that give kind of maybe a big picture, more holistic vision of like, is this tool actually going to help meet that learning goal? And then there's a couple of frameworks that get more into the nitty gritties, like, is the tool accessible? Are there ads? Is there a paywall? Different things like that you want to consider. Is it something that's going to disappear in 5 years? How many of you used Flipgrid in the past? Anybody? Yeah, and it doesn't exist anymore, right? So sometimes the tools that we love just disappear. So let's start with a little brainstorming. So we're going to go back to the Mentimeter. Let me get onto the next slide here. So let's just brainstorm. This is going to give us a word cloud. What factors do you consider or do you need to consider when you're evaluating a new tech tool? And I know some ideas have already come up in the conversation. Relevant, user-friendly, accessibility, learner-centered, curiosity. That's an interesting one. Curiosity, yeah. Free, yes. Accessibility is a big one, yeah. Easy to use. Boomer friendly, I love it. Yeah, we have to find one that's accessible for all the generations, right? In adult ed, we often have, I know in my classroom, I would have from ages literally 18 up to 82. So is it something that's accessible for people from all different generations? Is there a hidden agenda? That's an interesting one to consider, yeah. Digital skills necessary. Target audience. Yeah, and it's interesting. Accessibility is the biggest one here. It means multiple people have written that. Yeah, that's something we really have to consider. Is there's a lot of tools out there that are just not fully accessible. So if you have students that need to use a screen reader or have other accessibility issues, and maybe they aren't going to be able to use that tool. So that's a big one to consider. Data privacy, yes. Okay, great ideas here. So many factors to consider. So we're going to start with kind of, like I said, the big picture evaluation and prep time needed. I love that one as well. So you could keep typing your ideas in there, but I'm going to flip back over to the slides. Okay, so one framework that we love at OTAN. Let me hide this again. Is called the Triple E framework, which was developed by Dr. Liz Kolb, who had that quote that I shared at the beginning of the session. So Triple E is for engagement, enhancement, and extension. And so this is a framework for integrating technology into the classroom. So ideally, when you're integrating technology or selecting a tech tool, you want one that hits that sweet spot in the middle. So that means it's engaging students, it's enhancing the learning, and it's extending the learning into the students' lives outside of the classroom. So for engagement, you're considering, does this tool really allow for students to focus on their learning and their goal and to really be engaged without getting distracted? Is it something that they can, they have written here on this graphic co-use? So that means like, can you use it can they use it with other students? Is it something they can use collaboratively and not just on their own in a little silo? And then of course, does it help engage students in the learning process, help engage them in the goals? So this one's probably the easiest one to hit because tech is often very engaging, right? It's fun. Students can pull up an app on their phone. Sometimes it's kind of gamified. So often the engagement E is kind of the easiest one to hit. Sometimes the enhancement and the extension part of it are a little more tricky. So for enhancement, we mean, does it enhance the learning goals? So does the tech tool actually allow the students to develop a kind of a more sophisticated understanding or a deeper understanding of the learning goals or content through the interactivity of the tool, perhaps? Does the technology maybe create supports or scaffolds to help understand better? Does it help to differentiate learning or, personalize the learning to that student's needs? And then maybe it enhances the learning by creating paths for the student to demonstrate understanding in a way they couldn't do with traditional pen and paper tools or books. So, maybe that means they're able to create a video or create something that enhances their learning in a way that they couldn't do with traditional methods. And then the extension part of the Triple E is really is this something that just lives in the classroom, or is this using this tool something that gives them skills that can extend their learning beyond the classroom? So are they getting skills by using this tool that can help them if they continue their education, maybe if they go to college, or help them in the workplace? Are they getting valuable tools that can transfer to other parts of their life? Or maybe it extends the learning goals by allowing them to access learning content outside of the classroom so they can keep practicing when they're at home, the learning. So again, we know all three of these are really important. And again, that sweet spot is when you can find a tool and find a way to integrate the technology tool in a way that hits that Triple E, all three of those. So there is some links in that Google Doc that I shared at the beginning if you wanted to learn more about this framework. So you can check those out. We have some information on our OTAN website, otan.us. And then I linked also to Dr. Kolb's website as well. So to make this easier, there is this great rubric also developed by Dr. Kolb, which we'll get a chance to practice with. And if you wanted to see it up close, you can scan the code here. There's also a link to it in that Google Doc. And I will hop over to it so we can take a look at it. And basically, so there's a nice rubric. It has questions to consider for each of those 3 E's. And then when you score it, your tool either gets a green light, a yellow light, or a red light. So if it's a green light, it's like, great, this is an awesome tool. If it's a yellow light, yeah, but maybe I need to consider how I can maybe use this differently. A red light, maybe this isn't the right tool to use, or I'm going to need to significantly reconsider how I use it in my class. So let me pop over to that rubric. Yeah, so we'll take a closer look at this later. I'm actually going to have copies for you if you're in the room. So we'll get some practice evaluating a tool using this rubric. But basically, it has a section for each of those E's: the engagement, the enhancement, and the extension. Some questions to consider, and then you just rate it with a 0, a 1, or a 2. And then it's just one page. You just give it a score, and then there's a little results again with that. Green light, it's an exceptional or a very strong potential to connect to learning through that technology tool. Yellow points, it's maybe meeting 2 of the 3 levels of the framework. So it has a lot of potential. And then if it gets a red light, 6 points or below, it's maybe meeting 1 of the levels. Often that's the engagement level of the framework. I'm not, yeah, just the engagement one. And you might want to reconsider using that tool or consider how you could integrate it in a way that's more effective. So we are almost at the point where I want to give practice, but there's just a couple other tools I want to highlight first. Let me go back to the slide here. So just real quick, some of you might be familiar with this SAMR model. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I want to make sure we have practice with that EEE one, but this is another way to think about integrating technology. You know, the S is kind of the lowest level substitution, which just would mean maybe it used to be something you gave your students on paper and now you're sending it to them as a PDF. And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it's just save paper, right? Let's save the environment by having students read things online rather than printing out a bunch of papers. And then as we move down, we come to the R, where we are really redefining the learning. This tool really allows us to redefine learning and do tasks that were not possible through traditional pen and paper methods. And again, another framework is TPACK, and this is kind of similar to EEE a little bit. Like, you're looking for this sweet spot where we are combining. The tool helps us to integrate technological knowledge, content knowledge, and then also supports the best pedagogical or andragogical, I guess in our case, practices. Okay. So those kind of frameworks give us kind of a big picture. Okay, is this tool going to help support learning for my students in the best way possible? And so we're going to practice, and then after this, we'll get into some of those more, some frameworks for evaluating the other side of it, like the accessibility, the access, the usability, all of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice. So we always want to start with a goal, right? So we're not going to just evaluate the tool like in a vacuum, okay? So let's start with a learning goal, a learning objective, a learning task. And of course, obviously you would want to choose the goal and then consider the task, but I've already created some different kinds of tasks here that we can choose from. So you could select one of these tasks that maybe seems interesting or relevant to your own teaching context. So you can imagine you want your students to maybe practice a short speech and get peer feedback. You want them to, the second choice is you want them to, it's a math related one. They need to identify the steps to solve a multi-step equation, explain their reasoning. Students, maybe they're going to collaborate to draft a response to a customer complaint. And then D, maybe they're going to navigate a website to find specific information. So this is the task you want to do with your students. And now we need to brainstorm what tech tool are we going to try using for this task? Are you going to use maybe Google Docs or Google Slides? Are you going to use Padlet? Are you going to use Kahoot, like we talked about earlier? And then we're going to practice evaluating it with the Triple E framework. So you can do this. If you're somebody who prefers to work solo, you could do it on your own, but I also encourage you to work with some colleagues. You could turn and work in a small group of 2 or 3 or 4. Pick one of the objectives and the tasks. Talk with your colleagues, come up with some ideas. What tech tools do we think we could use for this task? And then we're going to get a copy of the Triple E rubric and go through here and score that tech tool that you landed on based on this rubric. And then we're going to share out if it got a red light, a yellow light, or a green light. And you can choose, I didn't specify what tech tool. You could choose any tech tool. Maybe there's something you learned about during the conference and that you're thinking about that maybe could work for one of these objectives, or maybe it's something you're already using in your own class. So if you're online, you should be able to make a copy of the rubric. And I'm going to start a 10-minute timer here, and I'm going to hand out the paper handouts for those in the room. It could be either way. Yeah, I think I guess I could have. So, for example, if you are choosing, students will practice a short speech. The goal is to choose a tool that they will use as a part of this task. Yeah, so as a part of this task. Yeah, so again, choose one of these tasks, choose a tech tool that students could use to help complete this task. And then once you've landed on that, go through the evaluation rubric and kind of score that tech tool and the activity that the activity that you're considering or how it would work for that task, basically. And I will ask you to share what score your tool got. So Yeah.
We're going to share the resources again as we see in chat.
You want to put that bit.ly link into the, oh, I think when I switched slides, I probably lost my timer. There's probably about about 5 minutes left. Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Yes. Right. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. But I do show on. Showing them how supervisor, and then I share. Level, but no, 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 no. I appreciate it. But my goal is to keep that so that over as a share the Mendy thing, profit time Gale is or not Okay, how are we doing? Got some ideas? I know it's hard to kind of think about this when you're not actually in the classroom. So, oops, it's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so guess what? I've got another Menti to share, although if you are in online, you can share through the Whova chat as well, if that's easier for you. So, go back to the Mentimeter. I don't know how to make this full screen in Mentimeter. Oh, well. You can share just what tool you were looking at, maybe what the task you chose was, and then how do you think if you were able to go through the Triple E framework with it and score it up and look at the scoring guide on the back of it, what score did it get? Did it get a green? Did it get a yellow? Did it get a red? And this is going to be cool for us just to see some of the variety of tech tools people were looking at. So we see here somebody evaluated WhatsApp, and WhatsApp got a green. So WhatsApp was engaging students, enhancing learning, and extending the learning goals. Yeah, I've never used WhatsApp in a class before, but I always think it's an interesting idea because so many students are already using that tool to communicate with their friends and family, especially if they're immigrants. They use it to communicate with people in their home countries. So what a great idea to integrate it into the classroom as well. It definitely helps extend that learning, and it can help enhance the learning as well. So any other tools that you looked at and evaluated, would love if you could share them in here. Anything in the chat, Gerald? All right. Yeah. It is. It is. So a tool could be anything. It doesn't, like this is WhatsApp. It's just a chat tool, right? So anything. It could be just like Microsoft Word. It could be an LMS like Google Classroom. It could be Google Docs. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be Chat GPT. They should have thrown out some different ideas beforehand, but it's like you had some interesting conversations. So Google Doc, collaborate on a response to customer complaints, got only a yellow. It would be interesting to know which Grok, which is an AI tool, I believe, which I have never used, got a green. I wish that the people online could unmute and share because I would be so curious. Or if anybody in the room wrote any of these things and wants to talk more about them, we can hand you the mic and you can share a little bit. I'll give just people a few minutes to type here. I know I was chatting with one group in the room about it was Notability, which is an app you can use to take notes and annotate PDFs, take photos, and then draw on them, which could also be, I think, could potentially really hit all three. because it's such a useful tool for students to use in their everyday lives as well. All right. So let's see. Oh yeah, we're right on time. Wow, I'm usually like not good at keeping my timeline, but I just gotta say I'm like right on it today. I don't know what it is. I guess it's that cup of green tea I had. So, oops, I'm back to the end of that. Okay, let me go back to my slides. Okay. Uh-oh, what happened? Okay. Oh, there's a lot on this slide. Okay, let me hide this again. So, okay, so we've thought about a little bit about the big picture questions for tool evaluation. And then there's all of these other things that are, equally important, but more about kind of the nuts and bolts of the tool. So we want to consider that usability, which is something I saw in a lot of your ideas. Like, is it user-friendly? Does it use clear language, especially if you're an ESL instructor? Is it using clear language that our students are going to be able to understand? Is it interactive? Is there multimedia support? Accessibility is a big one. I know there's a lot of a new push in a lot of school. I know in our state, I think it's national, to make sure everything we use is fully accessible. Anybody else dealing with this at their school? Yeah. So we want to make sure it's meeting those accessibility guidelines. I put data privacy in here under accessibility. It doesn't really fit, but especially if we're using AI tools, different things, we want to make sure that they have good data privacy policies. Is it mobile friendly? I know when I was teaching, we didn't always have access to Chromebooks or laptops. So is it something that our students are going to be able to access on a phone? If they have limited data on their phones, are they going to be able to use this tool? And then longevity. Is it something that's well established, or is it going to disappear on us like Flipgrid? What kind of tech support is available to help us and to help our learners learn the tool? So there's a few evaluation frameworks that I really like. You can kind of pick whichever one seems easiest to you to use. If you're familiar with ISTE, ISTE has a teacher-ready evaluation tool, and I have links to all of these in the Google Doc. So for this one, it's just an online, you fill it out, you type in the product name, let's say it's Padlet. You choose if it's an assessment, a curriculum, or a platform. And then you can go through, and it has these different indicators for the user interface and agency, and you just kind of choose if it meets or does not meet, and it'll automatically give you a score to help you evaluate. It goes through user interface and agency, learning design, digital pedagogy, which is some of like what we were talking about with that Triple E framework. Inclusivity, so it has questions here about diversity, empathy, accessibility. It's kind of an interesting framework. And then assessment and data. I don't believe so, no. I think this just gives you like a personal evaluation. It's just a form, and then you can export it if you want to, have it to share with anybody else. But it's not in a public database as far as I know. One tool that I really like actually is this Workforce EdTech tool evaluation criteria, which they have shared. They have a repository here of tech tools it's all workforce development related. And then they've shared the evaluation criteria that they use. So they have a bunch of questions here, again, about effectiveness, accessibility, including ease of use, language and culture, affordability, which was another one that came up in our word cloud. We want to use something. Often it's like we don't want to have to pay for a subscribe. Is it a free app, or is it a freemium, or is it something that I'm going to have to pay to really actually be able to use it? And then the user experience and data privacy and security, longevity. So I think this is probably my favorite. I think it really hits on all of the important things that we want to consider. And they have a nice rubric notepad that you can make a copy of in Google Sheets. You have to make a copy and then you can edit it, and it goes through all those criteria and again allows you to score it. And this would just be for your own reference, or maybe, you know, to share with colleagues, or if you're a teacher and you want your administrators to pay for a new tool, you could use this as, you know, backup of like, hey, look at how great this tool is. And then I think I put one more on here. Yeah, there's another rubric on here too. So those are all linked to in the Google Doc. So I recommend starting with that big picture. Is this tool going to enhance, engage, and meet all of the big picture considerations for my classroom, and then go into these other questions. Is it accessible? Is it free? Is it well established? Is it user friendly? All of those other questions. So a couple of strategies for integrating tech to support success. Once you've landed on a couple of tools maybe that you want to try or integrate into your student learning objectives, consider flexible onboarding. So a lot of times our students are super mobile savvy, but we can't assume that they are necessarily confident using computers or using other tools. I know I have a much younger sister, and she's in her early 20s now, and she was like so fantastic on her phone, but she would get lost trying to use Google Docs on a computer. So we can't assume that the mobile skills that so many students, especially the younger generation, has necessarily translate into other kinds of tech tools or computer literacy. And the use of just-in-time tutorials can be good. It's like teaching those skills right before the students are going to need them, and helps to kind of gradually build up that literacy and to gradually build up that digital resilience, getting in the habit of learning new tools, trying new tools, and not getting this kind of anxiety. Oh my gosh, I got to learn something new. Am I going to break it? Modeling troubleshooting is really important. So, you know, as a teacher, there's bound to come a moment where like the tech doesn't work the way that you want it to, or you're trying to log into an app and it's asking you a million times, you forgot your password, and now you have to pull out your phone to check your email. So modeling that process for students can be really effective, like just to narrate your thought process when the technical issues arise, so they can start to see, to build some digital resilience and see how to just work with it when there's issues instead of just giving up. And then really limiting the number of tools. Choose a few, like 3, and just stick with them for the entire course. And that way, students are going to become familiar with how the tools work. You're going to become familiar with how they integrate in the class. Don't introduce some new tool every single week. It's like start small, start with a few, and just stick with them. If you end up not liking them, next time you teach the course, you can switch them out for something different. And finally, don't forget to gather student feedback. So this is really important and often overlooked. We might think it's a great tool. We might think that it's engaging and enhancing and extending learning, and it's easy to use and it's accessible. And our students might have a different experience of it. So is it helping them meet their learning goals? Make sure you gather that feedback. And then don't forget that to get, you know, having support from your program and from your peers can be really important. Community matters. Often at a school, there's going to be maybe that handful of teachers, maybe you're one of them, who are really excited to try new tools. Lean into that, you know, if you can have some of your teachers being mentors to other teachers with technology, piloting tools with a small group of teachers who are interested and excited to try new technology. If your school is able to allow you to have a professional learning community, a PLC. This is something we had it when I was teaching. We were integrating a new LMS, and they were able to pay us actually to meet once a week for a PLC so we could learn the tool together and consider how to integrate it. And then there's also the professional learning networks that go beyond the school, like COABE. And if you're in California, you can lean into OTAN as well, our organization. So speaking of OTAN, if you want to learn more about selecting digital tools, we have created a adult education digital learning guidance, which is available on our website, otan.us. You can also access it here, and there's a link in the Google Doc. So this is a very long document, but you can also view it online or download it as a PDF that goes into many different aspects of digital learning and technology integration and tech tools. There's a chapter on AI. So there's a whole chapter on, I think it's chapter 4, which goes into evaluating and selecting and integrating technology in the classroom. So check it out if you want to read more. And that's it. So just one final reflection. So you can consider, I would like to actually, I want to edit this almost. You could either think about what is one tool you might start using, and what's one tool you might stop using. So just take a minute to reflect, and if you want to type that in the chat. Anybody have any ideas? What is one tool? Maybe you heard about it during one of the sessions in COABE and you think it has potential that you would like to start using or start exploring in your class. Anyone, any ideas? I know for me, one I learned about recently, it's an AI tool called Diffit. Has anybody heard of this one? Yeah, have you used it before? Yeah. Yeah, it's one that I just learned about, it not at this conference, but at a different conference. And I signed up for a free account, but I haven't had a chance to actually explore it yet. But it's one that I think has a lot of potential for creating instructional materials and tools that I would like to explore. Any other ideas? Do you have the... Any other ideas of tools that you'd like to start using, or any tools that you want to throw out because you think they're outdated and not good? Anyone?
We have one here from Kimberly called Flippity. Anybody heard of Flippity?
Flippity, I have heard of it, but remind me of what it is. If anybody, has anyone used Flippity? No?
We have a couple here, I think.
Kimberly, what is Flippity? If you can give us a little
Yeah, could you
overview
elaborate
in the
on that?
chat, elaborate.
And Joy is saying that she'll use Mentimeter.
Yeah, Mentimeter.
Yeah.
I love Mentimeter. If you haven't used it, I use it in here. It's great for, you can create all different kinds of polls, word clouds. The word cloud one's my favorite. And it's one of the freemiums. You can have up to like 50 participants a month for free before you have to pay for it.
So for Flippity, I'm seeing oh, it's a resource that allows for the creation of quizzes, flashcards,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
presentations, memory games.
Yes, that's right. Kind of similar to Quizlet.
You could turn Google spreadsheets into any flashcards and such.
Very cool. All
Yeah.
right. So Flippity seems like it has the potential. Okay. Many, many things to try and explore. Okay, so just final thoughts. I'm coming back to this quote. Remember, we don't select a tool and create a problem just so we can use the tool. Rather, we select a tool to meet the needs of the problem. So that, I hope, is, if you got any takeaway from this, that is the takeaway. And we're just right up here at 9:10, but happy to stick around if you have questions. So I'm putting this up here. If you wanted to reach out to me directly, my email is up there at the top. Happy to hear from you at any time. And then this is our website again, otan.us, and our general contact information at the bottom. So thank you all. Enjoy this last day of the conference. Enjoy the closing general session coming up here at 9:30. And it's been a pleasure spending this first hour of the morning with you. Thank you.